What is the mistake that keeps millions of people trapped in the drinking cycle? It is this. They believe they need to get their life under control before they stop drinking. They think once the stress settles down, once the bills are paid, once the relationship improves, then I'll deal with the drinking. But after 40 years of practicing emergency medicine and almost 3 decades of sobriety myself, I need to tell you something that might sound counterintuitive. For many people, alcohol isn't the result of chaos. It's the engine that keeps the chaos running. And until that engine is switched off, life rarely stabilizes. Today, I want to walk through why that happens. For most of my adult life, I believed alcohol was helping me manage stress. I was practicing emergency medicine. The work was intense, and the stakes were high. The hours were long. And at the end of the day, alcohol seemed like a perfect solution. A glass of wine, maybe a second, occasionally something stronger. In my mind, alcohol was taking the edge off. But what I did not understand at the time, and what neuroscience has made increasingly clear, is that alcohol doesn't relieve stress. It changes the brain's stress system itself. Your brain has a built-in threat detection network. Neuroscientists often refer to this system as the salience and threat detection circuitry, centered around structures like the amygdala. It is an ancient part of the brain, and its job is simple: keep you alive. It detects danger and then generates anxiety and prepares you to act to keep yourself safe. Alcohol interferes with that system. It dampens the brain's alarm signals. That's why that first drink feels so powerful. Not because alcohol adds happiness, but because it removes that tension. The brain experiences this relief as a reward, and dopamine helps stamp that lesson into memory. Drink, the threat detection system quiets down. Anxiety fades. The brain learns quickly. Once that learning occurs, alcohol becomes a tool for emotional regulation. Stress at work? Drink. Bored on a Friday night? Drink. Argument at home? Have a drink. Over time, something subtle happens. The brain begins to rely on alcohol to regulate emotional discomfort. And when the alcohol wears off, the stress system rebounds. Now the brain feels more anxious than before, which makes the next drink feel even more necessary. This is how a habit quietly turns into dependence. This brings us back to the idea that you must stabilize your life before quitting drinking. That sounds logical, but biology often works the other way around. When alcohol repeatedly disrupts sleep, mood regulation, and decision-making, it becomes extremely difficult to create stability. Relationships suffer, energy drops, motivation declines, and the very problems people are trying to solve begin multiplying. So they drink more to cope with the problems alcohol helps create. It becomes a closed loop. A line is crossed when drinking to deal with problems begins to create its own problems. Most people who get to the point where they are actually trying to stop drinking have crossed that line. If someone finally stops drinking, the first changes are often subtle. In fact, the first change often goes unnoticed, and that is that things stop getting worse. Over time, things do improve. Sleep begins to normalize. The brain's stress circuits slowly recalibrate. Cognitive clarity improves, and once that fog lifts, people can begin solving the problems that once felt overwhelming. Not overnight, but steadily, over weeks and months. I've watched this happen thousands of times in my patients, and I've lived it myself. The external consequences, which so often serve as a catalyst for change, begin to sort themselves out once alcohol is removed. One of the most surprising realizations in early sobriety is this: alcohol was not the only problem. It was a solution that stopped working. Once the drinking stops, the underlying issues become more visible: stress, emotional habits, relationship dynamics, life structure. That is where the real work of recovery begins. And that work is challenging, but it is also where genuine growth happens. You may hear stories of people who simply woke up one day and stopped drinking. And that sometimes does happen. But often, those individuals had something else working in their favor. Their brain had already begun shifting its relationship with alcohol. Maybe they started enjoying sober evenings more often. Maybe the hangovers were simply too bad. Maybe the cost of drinking finally outweighed the benefit. Their brain had been quietly recalibrating the equation, and eventually the decision became obvious. For others, like me, the brain's learning system is stronger. The association between alcohol and emotional relief is deeply wired. That doesn't mean they lack discipline. It means that their brain has been trained for years to rely on alcohol, and retraining the brain takes time. But it can be done. Every day, people do it. Over time, many people in recovery arrive at two simple truths. First, for them, alcohol and a stable life simply cannot coexist. Second, life without alcohol is not smaller. It is larger. More energy, more clarity, more possibility. But those benefits only become visible after the brain has time to recalibrate, and that requires that the first step is to take away the alcohol. If you're watching this and thinking about quitting drinking, here's an important takeaway. You do not have to solve your entire life first. You only need to take the first step. For most people, stability does not come before sobriety. It comes because of it. And once the fog lifts, the second act of a life can begin. Because giving up drinking does not mean giving up anything real. It means opening the door to the life you deserve. If you're committed to making a change to freeing yourself from alcohol's yoke, consider checking out my 90-day Sobriety Survival Kit, which I have left links to in the description below. In addition, I also have some free resources that I will link here as well. Finally, why not check out this video where I explore life after sobriety? I would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and comment below. I'm Dr. Donald Crowe, and I'll see you in the next one.